Psalm 16. In God's presence you are secure, your future is protected. Psalm 16 is not a song of temporary comfort. It is a declaration of eternal security. It speaks to the soul that has learned, often through suffering, that true safety is not found in circumstances, people, or possessions, but in the presence of God Himself. When David wrote Psalm 16, he was not living a life free from danger. He was familiar with betrayal, uncertainty, exile, and the constant threat of death. Yet in the midst of instability, his words carry an unshakable confidence. In God's presence, I am secure. My future is protected. This psalm reveals a spiritual law that many believers sense but struggle to articulate. The presence of God is not merely a place of comfort, it is a realm of protection, direction, and destiny. To dwell in God's presence is to step outside the illusion that life is random or that your future is fragile. Psalm 16 dismantles fear at its root by redefining where safety truly comes from. In a world obsessed with control, Psalm 16 invites us to surrender. In a culture driven by anxiety about tomorrow, this psalm teaches us that the future does not belong to chance, enemies, or even our own strength. It belongs to God. And if your life is hidden in Him, then your future is not exposed. It is guarded. This message is especially vital for those who feel spiritually awake but emotionally weary. Those who walk faithfully yet feel misunderstood. Those who sense that they are protected for a reason, even when life feels uncertain. Psalm 16 does not promise a life without hardship, but it promises something far greater, a life anchored in divine presence where nothing essential can be lost. As we begin this journey through Psalm 16, allow these words to reshape your understanding of safety, purpose, and destiny. This is not a passive psalm. It is a psalm of alignment, of positioning, of choosing God not only as Savior, but as portion, refuge, and guide. And as we explore the first truth revealed in this psalm, remember this: when God is your refuge, fear loses its authority. When God is your portion, lack loses its voice. And when God is your future, uncertainty no longer defines your path. God as your refuge, the foundation of true security. Psalm 16 opens with a simple yet profound declaration: Preserve me, O God, for in you I take refuge. This single sentence establishes the foundation for everything that follows. Before David speaks about joy, inheritance, or future hope, he begins with refuge. Because without refuge, nothing else can stand. To take refuge in God is not merely to believe in Him intellectually. It is an act of spiritual positioning. It means you have consciously chosen where your safety comes from. Refuge implies danger. It acknowledges that the world is not neutral, that threats exist, visible and invisible, yet it also declares that there is a place beyond those threats, a covering that cannot be breached. Many people say they trust God, but still seek refuge in human approval, financial security, emotional attachments, or control over outcomes. Psalm 16 exposes this tension. David does not say, "Preserve me, O God, and I will figure the rest out." He says, "Preserve me, for in you I take refuge." His preservation is directly tied to where he places his trust. Refuge is not passive. It is chosen daily. Every time fear rises, you choose where you run. Every time uncertainty appears, you choose what voice you listen to. Every time pressure builds, you choose what foundation you stand on. David understood that refuge is not about escaping reality. It is about anchoring yourself in a higher one. Spiritually speaking, refuge is alignment with God's authority. When you take refuge in Him, you step under His jurisdiction. You are no longer defining safety by your ability to predict or control outcomes. You are declaring that your life is governed by divine wisdom, not human limitation. This is why God's presence is inseparable from security. The presence of God is not merely emotional reassurance. It is legal ground in the spiritual realm. To be in his presence is to be within his protection, not because danger disappears, but because danger loses its final say. David's confidence did not come from the absence of enemies, but from the presence of God. This is a critical distinction. Many believers wait for peace to come before they feel secure. Psalm 16 teaches the opposite. Security comes first, peace follows. When God is your refuge, peace is not circumstantial, it is positional. The word refuge also implies exclusivity. You cannot fully take refuge in God while keeping other shelters as backups. Partial refuge produces partial peace. David's declaration is wholehearted. He does not divide his trust. He does not negotiate his security between God and worldly systems. He chooses God fully. This is why Psalm 16 is deeply confronting. It asks a silent question. Where do you truly run when life becomes uncertain? Not where you say you run, but where your heart instinctively goes, to your plans, your resources, your distractions, or to God. The moment you choose God as refuge, something shifts internally. Fear begins to lose its grip, not because it vanishes instantly, but because it no longer defines reality. Fear speaks in probabilities. Refuge speaks in promises. Fear magnifies threats. Refuge magnifies God. David continues by declaring that apart from God, he has no good thing. This is not denial of blessings, it is clarity of source. He recognizes that every good thing flows from God, not from circumstances or people. This realization is essential to lasting security. When God is your source, nothing external can ultimately destabilize you. Spiritual security is not built on consistency of outcomes, but on consistency of presence. God's presence does not fluctuate with seasons. His character does not change with circumstances. When you take refuge in him, you anchor yourself to something eternal. This is why those who truly dwell in God's presence often appear calm in situations that would overwhelm others. It is not emotional numbness. It is spiritual anchoring. Their sense of safety is not tied to what is happening around them, but to who is with them. Psalm 16 teaches that security is not the absence of risk. It is the presence of God within risk. And when God is present, even uncertainty becomes a pathway rather than a threat. Your future is protected not because you can foresee it, but because God already stands in it. Refuge is not about hiding from the future. It is about entrusting it to the one who holds time itself. And this is why David's opening declaration is so powerful. Before he speaks of joy, direction, or destiny, he establishes the foundation. God is my refuge. Without this truth, nothing else in the psalm could be trusted. With it, everything becomes secure. If this message is strengthening your faith and helping you understand the depth of God's protection, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. By subscribing, you ensure that these teachings continue to reach you and help you grow deeper in truth, security, and spiritual clarity. The Lord as your portion. Why your future cannot be stolen. Psalm 16 moves from refuge to something even more intimate and powerful. Identity of provision. After declaring God as his refuge, David makes a statement that completely redefines how security, success, and future are understood. The Lord is my chosen portion, and my cup, you hold my lot. With these words, David is not speaking poetically. He is making a spiritual declaration that carries legal, emotional, and eternal weight. To call the Lord your portion is to reject every false source of fulfillment. In biblical times, a portion was an inheritance, a share of land, a tangible guarantee of future stability. Land meant survival. It meant legacy. It meant belonging. When David says that the Lord is his portion, he is declaring that his inheritance does not come from territory, title, lineage, or material possession. His future does not depend on what he owns or controls. It depends on who owns him. This truth strikes at the core of human anxiety. Much of fear is rooted in the question of provision. Will I have enough? Will I lose what I have? Will the future take something from me that I cannot recover? Psalm 16 answers all of these fears at once. If the Lord is your portion, then nothing essential to your destiny can be stolen, because your inheritance is not external, it is divine. David does not say the Lord gives him a portion, he says the Lord is his portion. This distinction matters deeply. Anything given can be taken. Anything external can be threatened, but when God himself is your portion, your security is no longer fragile. It is eternal. You cannot outgrow it. You cannot lose it. You cannot be displaced from it. The phrase, "You hold my lot," reveals even more. In ancient culture, lots were cast to determine outcomes, inheritance or direction. They represented what would happen next. David is declaring that chance does not govern his life. Fate does not determine his future. God holds the outcome. This removes randomness from existence. Nothing unfolds accidentally for the one who has surrendered their portion to God. This is why Psalm 16 is not merely comforting, it is destabilizing to fear-based thinking. It dismantles the belief that life is unpredictable and unsafe at its core. David is not denying uncertainty, he is placing uncertainty under divine authority. When God is your portion, comparison loses its power. Many people feel anxious not because they lack, but because they see others who appear to have more. Psalm 16 breaks this illusion. If God is your portion, then your life is not measured against someone else's outcome. Your inheritance is not visible in the same way. It is internal, eternal, and uniquely assigned. This truth also frees the soul from envy. Envy thrives when we believe that fulfillment is scarce and competitive. But when the Lord is your portion, fulfillment is relational, not competitive. Someone else's success does not diminish yours. Someone else's blessing does not delay yours. Your portion is not a slice of a limited pie. It is the fullness of God himself expressed uniquely in your life. David continues by saying that the boundary lines have fallen for him in pleasant places. This is not a statement of luxury, it is a statement of alignment. Boundary lines represent limits, assignments, and responsibilities. Many people resent their boundaries. They wish they had someone else's life, someone else's path, someone else's calling. But David sees his boundaries as pleasant because he trusts the one who set them. This is one of the deepest revelations of Psalm 16. Peace does not come from limitless freedom, but from God-defined boundaries. When God is your portion, even your limits serve your good. You are not confined, you are protected. You are not restricted, you are guided. Those who do not trust God's portion often fight their boundaries. They push against their season. They resent their process. They believe fulfillment lies beyond where God has placed them. Psalm 16 reveals the opposite. Fulfillment is found by honoring where God has placed you, because your placement is intentional. The Lord as your portion also means that your identity is no longer rooted in achievement. Achievement fluctuates. It rises and falls. It depends on strength, timing, recognition, and opportunity. But identity rooted in God is stable. It does not need constant validation. It does not collapse under failure. It does not inflate under success. David understood this deeply. His life contained both extraordinary victory and painful loss. Yet Psalm 16 does not reflect instability, it reflects groundedness. Why? Because his sense of worth and future was anchored in God, not outcomes. When God is your portion, you are no longer living to prove yourself. You are living from acceptance, not for it. This transforms how you approach work, relationships, and calling. You are no longer striving to secure your future. You are stewarding what God has already secured. This truth is especially powerful for those who feel delayed, overlooked, or misunderstood. The world often equates delay with failure. Psalm 16 redefines delay as divine timing. If God holds your lot, then nothing arrives late. Everything arrives prepared. To believe this requires surrender. Many want God as Savior, but resist Him as portion. They want God to rescue them without redefining their source of fulfillment. Psalm 16 does not allow that separation. Refuge leads to portion. Protection leads to provision. Presence leads to inheritance. There is also a warning hidden within this truth. If God is not your portion, something else will be. Humans are designed to anchor their sense of security somewhere. If it is not God, it will be something temporary, and whatever that is will eventually fail you. This is why misplaced trust always produces anxiety. You are trying to extract eternal security from a temporary source. David's confidence comes from alignment. He has chosen his portion deliberately. This choice is not made once. It is reaffirmed daily. Every day you wake up and decide what defines your worth, your peace, and your future. Psalm 16 invites you to choose God again and again. The result of this choice is quiet confidence, not arrogance, not denial of hardship, but a deep knowing that whatever unfolds, you are not exposed. Your future is not hanging by a thread, it is held. This is why David can speak with such assurance about joy, guidance, and life beyond death later in the psalm. Those truths rest on this foundation. God is his portion. Without this, joy would be fragile, guidance would be uncertain, hope would be conditional. But with God as your portion, your future is protected even when you cannot see it. Even when you do not understand it, even when circumstances contradict it. If this teaching is helping you see your life, your limits, and your future through a deeper spiritual lens, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. By subscribing, you stay connected to teachings that strengthen faith, restore clarity, and anchor your life in God's unshakable truth, divine counsel, and inner guidance. How God directs a protected future. Psalm 16 continues unfolding its depth by moving from refuge and portion into something deeply personal and experiential. Guidance. David declares, "I bless the Lord who gives me counsel. In the night also my heart instructs me." These words reveal that God's protection over the future is not passive. It is active, intentional, and constant. God does not merely secure the destination, He guides the journey. Many people believe that if God protects their future, guidance will be obvious, loud, and unmistakable. Psalm 16 reveals something different. God's counsel often comes quietly, internally, and progressively. It is not always dramatic, it is deeply relational. David speaks of counsel that reaches him even at night, in stillness, when distractions fade and the soul becomes receptive. This tells us something crucial. A protected future requires an attentive heart. God's guidance is not withheld, but it is discerned. It flows to those who cultivate awareness of His presence. David's confidence does not come from external signs alone, but from an inner alignment with God's voice. The phrase, "I bless the Lord who gives me counsel," implies gratitude for direction, not frustration with it. Many struggle with guidance because they secretly resist surrender. They want clarity without obedience, direction without trust. David blesses God for counsel because he has already yielded his future. Guidance flows naturally when resistance is removed. True divine guidance does not always give detailed explanations. Often, it provides enough light for the next step. This is intentional. If God revealed everything at once, dependence would be replaced by control. Psalm 16 teaches that guidance is a relationship, not a system. It deepens through trust, not information. The mention of nighttime instruction is especially profound. Night represents uncertainty, vulnerability, and silence. It is when fears rise and clarity seems distant. Yet David says that even then, his heart instructs him. This does not mean his emotions guide him. It means that God's truth has been so deeply planted within him that even in silence, alignment remains. This reveals a powerful spiritual reality. When God is your refuge and portion, his guidance becomes internalized. You are not constantly searching outward for signs. Your discernment sharpens. Your conscience becomes sensitive. Your spirit becomes responsive. God's counsel does not remove difficulty, it removes confusion. There is a difference. David's life was not free from danger, betrayal, or loss, but he was not directionless. Even when circumstances were unstable, his inner compass remained steady. This is critical for understanding how God protects your future. Protection is not about preventing every hardship. It is about guiding you through them without losing your path. Many people lose years of their life not because of pain, but because of confusion. Psalm 16 reveals that God's counsel is the antidote to wandering. Divine guidance also corrects perspective. Often, the danger to your future is not external attack, but internal misalignment, wrong desires, impatience, fear-based decisions. God's counsel realigns the heart before damage occurs. This is preventative protection. David's relationship with God was not transactional. He did not seek counsel only in crisis. He cultivated ongoing intimacy. This is why guidance reached him even in the night. His heart had been trained to listen. There is also a subtle truth here. Guidance flows from blessing God, not from desperation. David blesses the Lord first. Gratitude opens the heart to instruction. Complaining dulls discernment. Those who constantly resent their process often struggle to hear God clearly. When God is your guide, your future is protected not by avoiding mistakes entirely, but by being redirected quickly. God's counsel is corrective. It realigns you when you drift. It warns you before damage deepens. This is why Psalm 16 carries such calm confidence. David trusts not his perfection, but God's faithfulness to guide. This inner guidance also produces moral stability. David later says that he has set the Lord always before him. Guidance is not only about decisions, it is about orientation. When God is set before you, values become clear. Temptations lose their pull. Compromises become obvious. Many people fear making the wrong choice and ruining their future. Psalm 16 reframes this fear. If God is your counselor, you are not navigating alone. Even wrong turns can be redeemed. Even delays can be repurposed. Guidance is ongoing, not fragile. There is also a deep connection between guidance and rest. When you trust that God is guiding you, anxiety decreases. You stop overanalyzing every decision. You stop fearing invisible consequences. You move forward with humility and trust. This does not mean recklessness, it means obedience. David's guidance flowed from his decision to set the Lord always before him. Guidance follows alignment. Protection follows surrender. The idea that God instructs the heart also reveals something about spiritual maturity. Guidance is not always external command. It becomes internal wisdom over time. God's truth shapes your instincts. Your reactions change. Your discernment sharpens. This is how God protects your future long term. A guided life is not a loud life. It is a steady one. It is marked by consistency, clarity, and inner peace. Psalm 16 shows us that God's protection is not only about outcomes, but about formation. He shapes who you become along the way. When God is your guide, you do not need to rush. Rushing often leads to regret. God's counsel brings patience. It allows things to unfold without forcing outcomes. This patience is not passive, it is confident. David's trust in guidance allows him to say later that he will not be shaken. Stability flows from direction. When you know where you are going, storms lose their power to disorient you. This is why divine guidance is one of the greatest forms of protection. It guards you from becoming someone you were never meant to be. It keeps your future aligned with your calling, not your impulses. If this teaching is helping you trust God's guidance more deeply and quiet your fears about the future, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. By subscribing, you stay connected to teachings that strengthen discernment, deepen faith, and anchor your life in God's direction. Unmovable stability, why God's presence keeps you from being shaken. Psalm 16 reaches a profound turning point when David declares, "I have set the Lord always before me, because he is at my right hand, I shall not be shaken." This statement reveals one of the deepest spiritual truths in the entire psalm. Stability is not produced by external calm, but by internal positioning. David does not say he will not face pressure. He does not say life will not try to shake him. He says that despite everything, he will not be shaken. The difference is critical. To understand this, we must first understand what it means to set the Lord always before me. This is not a poetic phrase. It is a deliberate spiritual discipline. David is describing a conscious daily orientation of the heart. God is not an afterthought, not a crisis option, not a distant belief. God is placed in front, first in awareness, first in decision-making, first in perspective. Most instability in life does not come from circumstances themselves, but from what we place before us. If fear is before you, you will be shaken. If people's opinions are before you, you will be shaken. If outcomes, timing, or control are before you, you will be shaken. David reveals the antidote. Place God before you, and stability follows. This kind of stability is not emotional numbness. David felt deeply. He grieved, rejoiced, feared, and hoped, but emotions did not govern him. Presence did. When God is always before you, emotions become signals, not rulers. They inform you, but they do not destabilize you. The phrase, "He is at my right hand," carries immense meaning. In ancient understanding, the right hand was the place of strength, action, and defense. To say that God is at his right hand is to declare that God is actively involved in his daily life, not passively observing it. God is not distant. He is close enough to act, to intervene, to sustain. This reveals that God's presence is not symbolic. It is functional. It affects how you stand, how you respond, how you endure. When God is at your right hand, you are not relying on your own strength alone. You are supported in weakness, steadied in uncertainty, upheld when pressure intensifies. David's confidence is not rooted in self-assurance. It is rooted in proximity. God is near. This nearness changes everything. A distant God may inspire hope, but a present God produces stability. The declaration, "I shall not be shaken," is not arrogance. It is trust. David is not claiming invulnerability. He is claiming anchoring. Shaking implies displacement. To be shaken is to be moved from alignment, from clarity, from peace. David is saying that while circumstances may move around him, they will not move him out of position. This is crucial for understanding spiritual maturity. Many believers measure stability by the absence of struggle. Psalm 16 teaches the opposite. Stability is the ability to remain aligned with God even while struggling. It is faith that holds its shape under pressure. Pressure reveals foundations. Anything not anchored eventually shifts. Relationships, identities, beliefs, and plans are tested over time. David's foundation is not built on consistency of circumstances, but on consistency of presence. God is always before him, therefore he remains steady. This truth is especially important for those who feel they are constantly tested. Repeated trials do not mean you are unstable. Often, they mean your stability is being proven. God allows pressure not to break you, but to reveal what holds you. When God is before you, perspective changes. Problems no longer appear larger than purpose. Fear no longer overshadows calling. Uncertainty no longer erases trust. This does not mean you understand everything. It means you trust the one who does. David's stability also flows from focus. To set the Lord always before you requires intentional attention. Distraction is one of the greatest threats to spiritual stability. When attention scatters, faith weakens. When focus returns to God, strength is restored. This is why so many people feel shaken even when nothing catastrophic has happened. Their attention has drifted. They are mentally everywhere, but in God's presence. Psalm 16 calls us back to intentional awareness. There is also a protective dimension to this stability. When you are not shaken, you make better decisions. Panic produces poor choices. Fear shortens vision. Stability allows patience. It allows wisdom to operate even under pressure. David's declaration implies a settled heart, a heart that has already decided where it stands. Many people are shaken because they are internally undecided. They have not resolved who God is to them. Is he central or peripheral? Is he Lord or assistant? Psalm 16 resolves this tension. God is central. This unmovable stability also affects relationships. When you are not shaken, you do not overreact. You do not cling out of fear. You do not manipulate outcomes. You are free to love without panic. You are free to let go without despair. Spiritually, being unshaken means your faith is no longer fragile. It does not collapse under questions. It does not disappear in silence. It does not depend on constant reassurance. It is rooted. David's life demonstrates this. Even when he was betrayed, hunted, or delayed, his faith did not disintegrate. It was tested, refined, deepened, but not destroyed. Why? Because God was before him. This is the kind of stability that protects your future. A shaken person makes fear-based decisions that compromise destiny. A steady person waits, listens, and moves in alignment. Stability preserves calling. God's presence does not remove storms, but it prevents drift. You may feel the wind, but you will not lose direction. You may feel pressure, but you will not lose identity. You may face uncertainty, but you will not lose hope. Psalm 16 teaches that unshakable stability is not something you achieve. It is something you receive by positioning. Set the Lord before you, and stability follows. Place him at the center, and the rest aligns. This truth invites self-examination. What is currently before you? What occupies your attention, your imagination, your concern? Whatever it is will shape your stability. Psalm 16 invites you to reposition God at the center again. And when you do, something quiet but powerful happens. Anxiety softens, fear loosens, confidence returns, not confidence in self, but confidence in God's nearness. If this teaching is helping you understand how God's presence produces unshakable stability in your life, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. By subscribing, you remain connected to teachings that strengthen your foundation, deepen your faith, and protect your future through truth. Joy beyond death and a future beyond time. Why God's presence guarantees eternal security. Psalm 16 reaches its highest and most transformative revelation as David declares truths that go beyond earthly protection and enter the realm of eternity. He says that his heart is glad, his whole being rejoices, and his flesh dwells secure. Then he speaks words that echo far beyond his own lifetime. For you will not abandon my soul to Sheol, nor will you let your Holy One see corruption. You make known to me the path of life. In your presence there is fullness of joy. At your right hand are pleasures forevermore. Here the psalm no longer speaks only about protection in this life. It speaks about ultimate security, eternal security. David's confidence reaches its climax not in circumstances, guidance, or stability, but in the unbreakable continuity of life with God. The future is protected not only tomorrow, but beyond death itself. This is where Psalm 16 becomes revolutionary. David is not clinging to survival. He is resting in belonging. His joy is not based on avoiding death, but on knowing that death does not have the authority to separate him from God's presence. This is a radical shift in perspective. Fear of death is the deepest fear beneath all others. Psalm 16 confronts it directly. When David says that his flesh dwells secure, he is not denying mortality. He is declaring trust. His body may be vulnerable, but his destiny is not. His confidence is not rooted in physical preservation, but in divine promise. God does not abandon what he claims. This is essential to understand. God's presence is not temporary. If God is your refuge, portion, guide, and stability, he does not abandon you at the threshold of death. Presence does not expire. Relationship does not dissolve. Protection does not end. David's words here prophetically point beyond his own understanding, but even within his own faith, he grasped something profound. God is not merely a God of moments, but a God of continuity. To belong to God is to belong to life itself. The phrase, "You make known to me the path of life," is not limited to moral direction. It speaks of existence. God reveals not only how to live, but what life truly is. Life is not defined by breath alone. It is defined by connection to God, and that connection transcends physical boundaries. This is why David can speak of joy with such confidence. His joy is not fragile. It is not threatened by loss, aging, or death. It is rooted in presence, and presence is eternal. The statement, "In your presence there is fullness of joy," reveals the ultimate source of happiness. Not partial joy, not temporary joy, fullness, completeness. This joy is not dependent on achievement, resolution, or understanding. It flows from being with God. Many people chase joy as an outcome. Psalm 16 reveals joy as an environment. It is not something you obtain. It is something you enter. When you are in God's presence, joy is not forced. It is natural. This also explains why so many experience joy even in suffering when they are deeply connected to God. Circumstances may be painful, but presence remains joyful. This joy is not denial of pain. It is transcendence of despair. David then speaks of pleasures forevermore at God's right hand. This is not indulgence. It is fulfillment. It is the satisfaction of the soul's deepest longing, to belong, to be known, to be held by God without interruption. The idea that pleasure exists eternally in God's presence challenges the belief that eternity is static or dull. Psalm 16 reveals eternity as alive, rich, and deeply satisfying. God is not merely the source of duty, he is the source of delight. This truth transforms how we view the future. The future is not a threat, it is not a void, it is not an unknown abyss. For those who dwell in God's presence, the future is a continuation of relationship. This is why David's confidence is so complete. He is not anxious about what lies ahead because what lies ahead is God. The same presence that guards him now will hold him then. Fear of the future often comes from imagining separation, separation from control, from comfort, from identity, from life. Psalm 16 dissolves this fear. There is no separation from God, not in suffering, not in death, not in eternity. This eternal perspective changes how you live now. When you are no longer afraid of the end, you are free in the present. You stop clinging. You stop rushing. You stop compromising out of fear. You live with courage and peace. David's joy is not loud or reckless. It is settled. His heart is glad. His being rejoices. His flesh rests. Everything is aligned. Mind, soul, and body are at peace because the future is not uncertain. This is the ultimate protection Psalm 16 offers. Not that nothing painful will happen, but that nothing meaningful will be lost. God does not abandon what he loves, and if you are in his presence, you are loved. The psalm ends not with fear, but with joy, not with struggle, but with assurance, not with questions, but with trust. David has walked us from refuge to portion, from guidance to stability, and now to eternity. This is the full arc of security in God. It begins now, sustains you daily, and carries you beyond time. Your future is protected not because life is predictable, but because God is faithful. If God is your refuge, your portion, your guide, your stability, and your eternal joy, then fear has no final word. Anxiety loses its authority. Death loses its threat. The future loses its darkness. This is why Psalm 16 is not just a psalm to be read, it is a truth to be inhabited. It invites you to dwell where David dwelled, in the presence of God. And if this message has strengthened your faith, brought peace to your heart, and helped you trust God with both your present and your eternity, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. By subscribing, you remain connected to teachings that deepen your understanding, strengthen your spirit, and remind you that in God's presence you are secure and your future is protected.